One of the things that we cannot ignore in the current state of events in the world is the unbelievable, unprecedented in recent memory, but very much precedent in history generally, the rise of anti-Semitism. It's something that is all over the world. It's something that younger people, including myself, people of my generation, have not seen to this degree. Only the older people remember this. For the younger people, it's a feeling of something that they thought only existed in history books, in the stories of their grandparents. It's all coming back. It's in the US campuses all over the United States. It's all over Europe. It's all over the world. We've now recently seen the UN deciding, and particularly this moment in history, in time, to vote to declare the Palestinian Authority, if it should be an official state, an official country, one of the nations, the United Nations, and I don't remember if it's 134, 143 states voted for it, and 25 abstained, and only 9, including ourselves, which is really only 8 more countries, voted against it. And the timing is no coincidence. And it's very, very clear that something that many of us thought was gone or sleeping, very deeply, has awakened in a way that we could not have imagined. And the question is, what do we do with this? How do we understand this? So one thing that I only heard very recently is that it was in 1964 that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was asked, does he think that a second Holocaust can happen? And his answer was, it was 2 words. It was tomorrow morning. That's what he said. And again, during the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and well into this millennium, people would have brushed it away. And they would have said, we're in a different world. For example, we have the UN, which is supposed to take care of this kind of racism from coming back into the world. And it turns out that the UN is one of the moving forces behind this. And it turns out that people don't listen to arguments and they don't listen to the real data. They believe what they want to believe, and they all too easily believe that in the conflict right now in the Middle East, despite everything we know, despite the fact that 18 years ago, we totally came out of the Gaza Strip, that we have given them a real chance, an unbelievable chance to make something out of that piece of land. They could have turned it into paradise. And they used all the time, all the money, all the resources they had to plan the horrible attack that they made on us, and vowing very clearly to do it again and again. And yet people are able to ignore this and to turn it around and to say that we are the genocidal villain in the story and not the other way around. And all the amount of convincing and explaining doesn't seem to help. In fact, it only seems to make things worse. In fact, the people that are speaking for us in the best way are non-Jews, other non-Jews. There are some journalists, there are some Arabs, Israeli Arabs, or Arabs who support us, who know the Arab world, the Muslim world from the inside, the Palestinian world from the inside, and they can vouch for what we've all seen. But we ourselves are very, very much confused. And so I want to address this a little bit. And of course, I want to do this with, Torah eyes and faithful eyes. And I want to understand this in a deeper way and ask the question of how exactly are we supposed to handle and deal and treat this whole surge in anti-Semitism, which appears only to be the beginning of something much, much bigger. I mean, it's not going to sort of disappear over the next few weeks. We'll be seeing each other every week, and my guess is, we can all guess, week after week, it's assuming it's going on at the same pace, and unless a miracle happens, it's only going to get worse. And so we have to brace ourselves, as people say. And bracing ourselves means we have to connect to a deeper perspective, a deeper Jewish, faith-driven, faith-guided perspective on how to deal with things like this that have occurred throughout history, but every generation is a bit taken aback by them, a bit surprised, because no generation experiences them firsthand until it really happens, and then we say, well, we read about it, we heard about it, and wow, unbelievable, it's still here, it's still going on. But every time it's another opportunity to reconnect in a deeper way to how, as Jews living in the world, having this experience, and more than everything, having in our backpack the book, the library of the Torah, which is really a toolbox equipping us with the eyes, with godly eyes, to look at this. So we need to go back to this backpack and to our heritage, our inheritance. And of course, it's not just for Jews, it's for everyone, because many in the world who are not eaten up by anti-Semitism are looking up to the Jews, are looking at the Jews to hear a message, and to get from them also a perspective that they, as non-Jews, who realize that something is very off here, to see what how we should all react to this and respond to this in a way that's profound, in a way that's constructive, in a way that doesn't, fall into despair, which is the easiest thing in the world to do. It's the most, obvious, natural thing in the world to do, is when you see such a thing, it's so massive, it's so nearly unanimous, that what can you do? So the easiest thing, the most natural, and I'm speaking on my own, from my own perspective also, the easiest thing is to fall into a kind of despair. And of course, that's the last thing we should do. And in fact, all this is happening in order to challenge us and to teach us not to fall into despair. So it all has to do with going back to adopting a deeper Torah faith-driven perspective. So let's start with a good thing that we can all see that is very directly coming out of the rise of anti-Semitism. And the good thing about this is that it forces many, many, many Jews the world over, who have considered themselves, until very recently, citizens of the world, human beings who happen to be of Jewish ethnicity, people who may be connected more or less to their Jewish identity. They have a little bit of their tradition, or their very little tradition, or no tradition. Many Jews the world over are realizing, and they're saying this now, and you can hear this all over the world, I'm realizing now, looking at the demonstrations on the campuses all over the world, that nothing's going to help me. I am first and foremost a Jew. I cannot escape this identity. It's part of me. And they're waking up to this realization. And that's something very, very positive. It's amazing. In fact, it's almost for someone who's teaching Judaism and trying to teach people about, understanding what it means to be a Jew in a deeper way, and has been doing so for my case, 20 years. Other people are doing this for 50 years. For all of us, it's almost a bit frustrating that what we've been working on for years and years, we haven't been able to achieve what October 7th was able to achieve. And this was actually written in the Talmud. In the Talmud, it says that when Achashverosh, the king in the scroll of Esther, the removal of his ring, when he took off his ring to give his stamp of approval for Haman's decree to kill all the Jews, which was this political act, right? The removal of the ring is like the signing of the paper, signing of the decree. This was greater, the act and what it achieved was greater than all the 48 prophets and all the 7 prophetesses, the female prophets, that God gave the Jews. Right? There's a tradition that we have had altogether 48 male prophets and 7 female prophets, actually more, but the main ones. And so this phrase in the Talmud tells us that when he removed the ring, it was greater than all the prophets and prophetesses put together. And that's basically the feeling that we're getting now, is that October 7th and this anti-Semitic, terrible, vile, cruel attack made more of an impact than all of the Torah classes put together. And that goes to show the power of hatred and the power of an actual threat, more than, just words and positive words. And of course, it's not something we need to plan or we need to do, but that's part of how Hashem is running the world. Now, however, all this is just, like the first impression of what's going on. And we could very much be lost in looking at this and focusing on this positive aspect of the rise of anti-Semitism and tell ourselves, well, at least many, many Jews are waking up to the fact that they're Jews is meaningful. It's not meaningless, or it's not something to be just brushed away. It's not something to be neutral about. It's something that you can't escape, and then that you have to face it. And we could look at this positive side and say, well, that's enough. But the thing is that the very thing which I just said is positive, the thing itself, this waking up, also has a negative element to this very fact. What is the negative element? The negative element is that the kind of awakening that we're seeing is a very superficial kind of awakening, unfortunately. And this touches something very profound in the way many Jews, have always dealt with anti-Semitism. And that's something that we need to really address if we want to make the most out of what's going on in the world right now. What's happening is that many Jews are waking up and are coming together and having once again, a feeling of community, but it's all negatively formed around anti-Semitism. That is, they have a feeling that we have a mutual sort of predicament. The predicament is that we're persecuted and hated. And the fact that we have this shared predicament and it brings us together, then this is, that's the whole story. So we are victims of this blind, unexplained, mysterious, absurd, I would say, anti-Semitism, which is in the world, is hatred, irrational hatred of us for who we are, for what we are. And of course, if you have an enemy, then it brings you together, it puts you together. But it puts you together in such a way that all you're doing is talking about your enemy. That's many, many Jews today that are waking up. So it's understandable. It's very much understandable. But it's something that if we only remain in this level, we're sort of I feel we're missing the opportunity. People are coming together to fight anti-Semitism, to complain about anti-Semitism, to show to the world how anti-Semitic everything that's going on is, how history is repeating itself. They're trying to expose it. They're trying to, display it to the world. They're trying to project it back into the world.